Hi again, Rick8 here. It's been long requested that I make videos detailing the FTL devices of other franchises, so I thought I'd start with the faster-than-light travel used in Battlestar Galactica. I will be talking about the entirety of the plot for BSG, so here's a spoilers ahead warning for your Dradus. So contact made, let's jump right in. I'm not sorry. The faster-than-light drive of Battlestar Galactica is colloquially called the jump drive, and it is the primary method of interstellar travel used by both the colonies of Cobol and the Cylons. What we know of this propulsion is relatively little, but the device does have its limitations and effects rather well documented, giving us some idea of how it all works. First up, the origin of the Ftl Drive is rather muddied. It's probable that it was created millennia ago on the original world of Cobol, but this can't really be confirmed. One of the big premises of the show is the cycle of time, how events concerning Cylons, humans and colonization are constantly in a state of repetition. With the eventual settling of Earth 2 in the show's finale, the humans, and pretty much humans at this point, Cylons, decide to settle the planet and choose to abandon their technology, and as such a similar event may have occurred with the founding of the 12 colonies in the first place. In opposition to this speculation, however, is the sheer distance that Cobol was from the colonies, as well as the fact that the colony worlds themselves, although nearby on a galactic scale, were still light years apart. So an exodus on the scale recorded in the near mythological scrolls and histories would probably have needed some FTL technology. If the jump drive was invented by the 12 colonies, then it was likely simply reinvented. The drive itself runs on a fuel source called Tilium. Like every other FTL fuel source in sci-fi, Tilium was a super rare metallic ore that had to be mined. Its appearance was a sand-like substance that, when processed, became unstable before becoming a condensed translucent liquid. The potent energy source is 10 million times more efficient than gasoline, for example, but its amazing properties can be wasted in its refined state if exposed to intense radiation, which renders it inert. A standard FTL drive looks akin to a generator, in that it was a cylindrical structure that would have to be spun up to optimal speeds to initiate a successful jump. This required some time, depending on the make of the drive, so if it was expected to be needed, the FTL systems were kept primed, ready to jump. The process of jumping creates a folded space effect where 2 points, the ship's current location and its destination, are brought into contact for a moment so the vessel can hop across the distance. This process creates a violent distortion in space, which is observable by people within the vessel, as well as damaging effects to anything nearby to a jumping ship. Such distortions can cause massive damage to structures, and if performed in the atmosphere, leave behind an instant vacuum which fills with air at sonic speeds, creating a boom. There is also an accompanying effect of a beam of light that runs from the aft to the fore of the ship as it disappears. A jump's distortions, to a lesser extent, do place a strain on a vessel, as we see the structural damage to the Galactica eventually renders her unable to jump when her back breaks. Now structurally unsound, an attempted FTL jump would destroy the ship completely. Limitations to the jump drive too did exist. For a start, the larger the mass jumping, the more power was needed to shift it, often done by installing multiple FTL drives. This would therefore increase a demand for refined Tilium, so there was a definite material cost to jumping. On top of this, performing a jump could be done at a moment's notice, but it's not recommended, as a blind jump could drop you anywhere, into a gravity well, into a planet, asteroid field, whatever. As such, the limiting factor to an FTL jump was less a matter of fuel and more of computing time. A jump had to be planned out extensively ahead of the instance by a computer, or by hand if you're good enough, based on the observations of distant stellar phenomena and mathematically rendered predictions of celestial drift. The complexity and accuracy of this information was of vital importance to a ship, which gave every spacefaring vessel a maximum red line range. Jumping beyond it was possible, but the chances of inaccuracy increased exponentially beyond the red line, placing such a blind jump in the hands of the Lords of Cobol. However, when making a jump with a set of calculated coordinates, a substantial degree of accuracy was achievable. This was most commonly seen when the colonial fleet made its numerous jumps and remained in formation throughout with barely meters of drift to account for. It was also possible to jump into the stable orbit of a planet or even into its atmosphere at speed. The time and complexity as a limiting factor is what gave Cylon ships, such as their base stars and raiders, an edge over the drives of the colonial fleet. The Cylons themselves, being artificial bioorganic machines, had much more efficient methods of calculating jump coordinates, which in turn gave them a further red line and therefore distant range when plotting their jumps. A journey that took the colonial fleet over 200 jumps was made in less than 10 by a single Raptor due to their advanced navigation. It is theoretically impossible to track a vessel through a jump based on observing the act itself, as momentum, current course and heading have no bearing on the FTL system, except as internal components to the calculation for the jump. So a ship doesn't need to be facing its destination, for example, to get there. There were ways around this, however. The only way to directly follow a ship was to gain access to a ship's navigation computer via a network breach or a spy, and for the final calculations to be transmitted to a pursuer. The other method was simply prediction and intuition, to guess at the most likely destination and attempt to head off your quarry, which is basically guesswork. Because of the untraceable nature of a jump, this also made any form of early warning for detecting incoming vessels impossible. The first sign you would have of a vessel entering your proximity would be when it showed up as a contact on your DRADIS scanners. The FTL action itself was also briefly detectable, but seemingly of little consequence to stealth missions, so presumably for smaller vessels, jumping was less a distortion in space-time and more a ripple. A plop. This form of FTL is very different from other big series that I've covered on this channel. Star Trek's Warp Drive, Star Wars' Hyperspace, and Mass Effect Drive are all actually moving a ship physically through a medium, either literal space or a near but separate realm like hyperspace or slipspace. The BSG method is more akin to an instant teleport by folding space, like the coaxial warp drive in Trek, or, well, the infinite improbability drive from the Heart of Gold in Hitchhikers, although that's based on quantum probabilities. Thanks for watching this video on the jump drive of BSG. Let me know which one to tackle next. I'm thinking one of the other dimensional travelling ones. Those seem fun. Maybe I'll take a peek into Warhammer's Warp. Oh my god. What the ever-loving hell is... Oh no, that's a horrible place. Well, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Maybe.